Welcome back to Through the Big Book with Dr. Ben. My name is Ben and I'm an alcoholic. So we will be continuing in We Agnostics. This is the second portion. If you haven't listened to the first section, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that first. We're on page 47 in the middle of the first paragraph. So so hopefully you just paused, or not paused, but took some time to think about these spiritual terms and what they mean to you. As it says at the start, this is all we needed to commit spiritual growth, to affect our first conscious relation with God as we understood Him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. And so at this point, I really encourage people to set aside all of that stuff that they think they may know about spirituality or religion or whatever that they think might be right. All those things were preconceived thoughts and preconceived notions and former beliefs up to this point that got you right to this point, right where you are right now. And so something's off. Something is obviously off. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in, right? You're not going to wind up, being a hopeless when your spiritual life is healthy. It's just not possible. And so we have to really boil these things down. I've heard it talked at as defined as spiritual deconstructionism or spiritual deconstruction, where you take all of these things that you think you know about spirituality, and it's used in religious circles, but where that you take everything and you put it all in the burner, in the smelter, or I don't know, the incinerator, whatever. You boil all this stuff down, and what's going to happen is that all the impurities are going to burn up or wash away, or however you want to think about that, and nothing but the pure stuff is going to be left. So, you might have some concepts that you were told your whole life, that this is the way this is supposed to be, this is the way God is, or whatever, and that might be keeping you sick. And the crazy thing is we don't even know it. It's just, well, hell, that's what my dad said, so I believe it must be true. It may not be. He might have been sick because of that. That might have been, and it might be one thing, like that one thing. It might be 20 things. You might be completely wrong. You might be completely wrong about this spiritual stuff. And you have to be willing to accept that, to move forward. Because all that stuff was an old thought, and it got us to sickness. And, if you're right about 99% of that stuff, and you've only got one little thing that's off, well, that's good. You're going to have some easy lifting moving forward. But nonetheless, it all needs to be really critically analyzed and thrown into the fire, because whatever's true that you throw into the fire is going to come out true on the other side. That's just what happens. That the truth is just invaluable. It's that's what we're looking for here, and we dive really deep in the 4-step looking for our own truths. So don't be afraid to put all your beliefs in the fire and burn them all up, because if they're all true, they'll all come out fine on the other side. I just really encourage you to do that. So then it says, and that's what all brings us to a second step, is just the willingness. It says, we needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? So you ask yourself that. It's yes or no. That's it. That is the second step right there. I'll say it again. It says, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? Yes or no? If no, that's fine. Go back to doing your thing. Go stay sober without this program, or go drink, or do whatever. I don't know what to do. Other than encourage you to consider restarting the chapter. But assuming that you see how straightforward this is, all we have to do is be willing to believe that there's a power greater than ourselves and just say yes to that. Then we just skip on. We just move on ahead. It's just that simple. When I hear what people are talking about, I'm working on my second step. What are you working on? That's just a question. There's a podcast I listened to where a leader was saying how whenever he has people who work for him who are stuck on a decision, you tell them flip a coin, and by the time it lands, you'll know your answer. We generally know that we know the answer. We know what's going to be. You know what I'm saying? You want it to be yes. Do you want to go back to what led you to getting to this point? No, of course not. Yes, you're willing to give it a shot. You just move forward. Just do it, So it says, as soon as a man can say that he does believe or is even willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he's on his way. It's been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. Yeah. And, I actually forgot something from the last page on 46 where I was talking about once I express even a willingness to believe in a power that we commence to get results. I mean, imagine if work was like that. Imagine if I just was willing to go to work and they started sending me checks. Didn't actually go to work, but I was just willing to go to work, and they're like, well, thanks, Ben. We're really glad that you're willing to go to work. Here's your money. Pretty sweet deal, right? I mean, that's the terms that God's offering here, is just to be willing to believe in him. Believe in it, whatever. I'm just going to go with him. I'm just going to go with the dictation that the book lays out here. Willing to believe in him, and now you're starting to get spiritual results. I mean, how good of a deal is that? You can't get that anywhere else. And then the cornerstone, there's an architectural meaning behind that, and I can't really remember that right off the top of my head. I think most of you will probably know what that means, but it basically holds the weight of. Actually, hang on, let me look that up real quick. Cornerstone. So it's an important quality or feature on which a particular thing depends or is based. So it's a huge deal here. What we're saying here is that your program is built on a foundation of steps 1, especially 1 and 2, 1 and 2. 3 is a whole different story, but to me the foundation is on 1 and 2. I'm sorry, not just me. That's what the book's saying here now. All right, so it says, that was great news for us, for we had assumed that we couldn't make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. That was so much my case. I couldn't believe in some of the things that I was being taught as a kid. It was just like, this is just doesn't make any sense at all. I can't get this. But I do believe in, helping people who are less fortunate and being honest and certain things like that. But I can't call myself a this because there's just so much of it that I just thought was way out there. And that's what this is saying here. It says, when people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently do we say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if only I could believe as he believes. But I can't accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. I'm still like that. I still wish that I could accept a lot of things I see people just going for. I wish I could check my brain at the door and just submerge myself in spiritual stuff. There are times when I can, but it's just hard for me. It's hard for a lot of people. But the more I find that I can do that and relinquish my my tight hold on worshiping logic and needing to understand everything, the better I can feel in that sphere, and the more I can be a part of when I'm in that sphere, if that makes sense. So Besides a seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. And obstinacy just means stubborn. So many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. Now, if ever there was a really fun thing to say, that would be it. Bristle with antagonism. To me, that just means you're getting pissed off about it. But bristle with antagonism, I mean, let's just say that's a $5 phrase. Pardon me, sir. What you just said made me bristle with antagonism. Ma'am, your driving is making me bristle with You see what I'm saying? It's so... Anyways, so this sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Here we go. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be as prejudiced for as long as some of us were. And that's me too. I'm no different. I'm just a textbook alcoholic when it comes to that stuff. It was so hard for me to really let go on this stuff. But every time I just said, nah, I don't need this, I'd go back out and I'd get my ass kicked, and would come right back. It was like the revolving doors, somebody calls like the hokey pokey. You do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. That's kind of what it was like. It's what it's like for a lot of us until we get, beat to that state of reasonableness to where we'll accept this sort of thing. So let's see, where are we at here? Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it there, and we'll pick back up on the next episode. So I hope this is helping you out. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me at drbenaa at gmail.com. Also, again, I just can't emphasize enough. I encourage you to, go to meetings, to go to AA meetings, to look for somebody that can take you through the book like I'm doing, and that you can ask more questions to. You can ask them how they got their spiritual health and what they're doing. What's their concept? Maybe they'll tell you. I mean, I was about as open-minded as you could be because I had nothing to base it on here. So I encourage you, reach out in your community, get on the online platforms, find a sponsor, and just keep showing up and listening, and something will click. It will click eventually. You just keep coming back and keep at it, and you'll find what you're looking for. All of us who look find. It's just the way of the ages. It's just that's just a spiritual truth that I found. I hope that doesn't offend you, but from here on out, I'm not going to say I'm sorry if that offends you. I'm just going to keep saying this stuff because we've kind of established our baseline as far as what does God mean. Why do I use Him? Because the big book says it. I use God because the book says it, because I speak English. I live in North America. So that's why we're going to go that route. So otherwise, I really love you, and I know that you can do this stuff. So keep at it, and I will see you on the next episode.